Peace and love, freedom and decolonization to all African people, those at home, those abroad, and those in the future. If you have two shoes, please sell one and buy a sword. If you have two trousers, please sell one and buy a sword, because now it is time for revolution. And this revolution is not on the streets. This revolution is in the mind. Because if we are not free in our mind, if we are not in charge of our thoughts and of our mind, then our bodies will be just the tools that other people will be using to oppress us and to oppress our people. It is a pleasure to have you again on our weekly rendezvous where we talk about things important to the agenda of African liberation and African emancipation. My name is Kabbalah from the African Continental Unity Party and the Free-Minded Pan-African Academy. Before we proceed, I will invite you to please kindly subscribe to our YouTube channel, like this video and share it, because what we are sharing is important. As I said, is important for our agenda to liberate ourselves and to emancipate ourselves as African people. Now, today, brothers and sisters, I want us to discuss about something in this book. This is a book that I wrote a couple of years ago. The title of the book is Expropriation of the Mind Without Compensation. Now, the reason why I wrote this book, Expropriation of the Mind Without Compensation, is because I've realized that for Africa, as we're speaking right now, the only thing that remains for us to actually free Africa and to create the Africa that we want is the liberation of our mind. In fact, I can call the current period in which we are living today as a period of neuron colonization. It means the colonization of the mind of African people, even though we call it neocolonialism, but when you look at it properly, it is more of the colonization of the mind of African person than the colonization of our resources and everything else. Because as I said earlier on, if we are not in charge of our mind, if we cannot control our thoughts, if we cannot determine what we are thinking, what is coming out of our mind, we then are not in charge of our bodies, and therefore our bodies are then functioning as instruments or as tools that are in the control of other people, or that are under the control of other people. And that is dangerous for people to be living in that situation. Before I get into the book, actually, let me say something. You see, when we listen to the radios, when we listen to the music, when we read books, when we do all these things, we intend to believe that we are the ones who delve into a book, for example, or enjoy the music that we are listening to. But in reality, it is the author of the book whom we let enter our brain. It is the musician that we let enter our mind and our brain. But we never question as to when they leave our brain, do they leave something in us and leave with something from us, or we are in control of that mechanism? That's the most important thing. You read a book, you are letting the author entering your mind. So the question is, do you control what he leaves in you? And do you control what he takes away from you when he leaves, or when you're done reading that book, means when he leaves your mind? So mind is a very important aspect of our lives. Actually, all the thinkers, all the philosophers have agreed that as a man thinkers, so is he in his mind. So is actually his reality. So when you want to understand what is happening with your life, when we want to understand what is happening with our lives as African people, we cannot rule out this aspect of our mind. We cannot rule out the question of who controls the mind of African person, who controls the thinking of an African person. And we can even bring this question to a level of a society to question who controls our mind as African people, who controls our thinking patterns as African people. And if we answer this question correctly, then we'll be closer to finding the solution to many of our problems. Because at this moment, many of our problems are psychological problems, are only psychological problems. So, based on this analysis, I had to write a book that I'm presenting to you, The Expropriation of the Mind Without Compensation. Expropriation of the Mind Without Compensation. That is the title of the book that I published based on the understanding of our reality today evolve around the mindset of African person or globally of African people. Now, the most important thing that I've argued in this book is a formula which I've called head to hands formula or thought to action formula. Basically, what it means is that a human being is created and designed to function by formula. You know, formula just means like by principle. Just like the universe in which we are living is functioning by principles. That's the reason why it's called cosmos. Cosmos in Greek simply means order. And something that is not orderly functioning, it then functioning based on chaos, which is disorder from Greeks. So we are also designed to function based on certain order, which then we call the formula. You know, we can call the formula in the context of this book. And that formula is called head to hands formula or thought to action formula. So basically, it means that in life as people, before we engage our hands to work on certain things, let us first engage our heads in the creation or in the structuring of what we want our hands to work on. The same thing, before we jump on any actions as a people, we firstly need to engage our thoughts in the creation of that action, and therefore we are now ready to jump on actions in bringing what we have created in our mind into its physical equivalence. Now, this is where most people in Africa, many of us as African people, are getting it wrong, because mostly we jump into actions that have been engineered by other people's brain. We overlook at our own aspect of thinking, engaging our heads and creating our own reality before we can engage physically into transforming that reality into its physical equivalents. Then we jump into actions that have been designed by other people's minds, other people's thoughts. So that is where we are getting it wrong. And I understand why. Simply because colonization, slavery, and today neuron colonization, as I spoke, really has destabilized, not even destabilized, has destroyed our capability of self-management, which in fact eventually requires that people need to think for themselves, by themselves, so that they can begin to act in a way that responds to their aspirations and their expectations of life. You see? So that is where our problem can be located today. It's the fact that we want to join, for example, organizations that have been created in the imagination of, for example, Europeans. And remember, when someone sits down to think about anything, he firstly think about resolving his own problems. When somebody sits down to think about any action, any projects, any plan, he firstly think in the context of resolving his own issues and his own problems, not the problems of other people first. You know, even though what he's thinking can trickle down to resolving the problems of other people. But first and foremost, the person thinks for resolving his own issues or problems first. Now, if we jump that stage or that step of thinking for ourselves and go straight into working, into acting on other people's thoughts, we are then fulfilling their own design, their own desire, their own ambitions, their own picture, which was printed in their mind. We are then tools, we are then instruments that accompanying those people in the fulfillment of their own agenda, right? Because we didn't take time to think, to engage our own imagination in creating what we want for ourselves. So that's the problem today. And that's how it appears mostly that for us as African people, in whatever we do, we are kind of accompanying other people in the fulfillment of their journey. And Africa stays or remains in the condition of precarity, hunger, malnutrition, all these things that we cannot, outline here in this video. But we know well what we are going through as African people. Simple examples. We, including our leaders, we want to be members of other people's organizations, other people's initiatives, while we have the capability of creating our own initiatives today and make them successful. You see, I'm always saying that if European unions, for example, if NATO, if these European institutions could open their doors for African countries, all the African leaders would have brought our nations into these organizations because they seem to be successful and strong organizations. Therefore, we want to be part of them because we don't believe in our own capacity to create what we want or what we need and make it powerful and make it strong. You see, it's like when we used to play soccer as children, when we say, okay, let us choose the teams, we always choose the teams where we see best players are there because we want to be part of them, expecting that we are going to win, all of us. You're never going to choose a team where you don't see best players there. I mean, that's reality today. But simply because we didn't believe in our own capacity to play better, to become best player, and then to eventually make things happen. So this is what we see today in Africa. We want to be part of NATO. We want to have a relationship with the so-called superpowers. We want to be part of, all these multilateral organizations. We want to be part of the WTO, the World Health Organizations, trilateral commissions, Bilderbergers groups, all these things. If Negroes have their ways, they could have been part of all these things. Simply, the reason is just that some of these organizations are exclusive to the people who have built them. They are exclusive to Europeans, some of them, most of them actually. That's why we are not able to join them. So this boils down to our incapacity to do for ourselves what other people have been pretending to do for us. And simply because in our mind, we don't believe that we got what is necessary to do for us what we are supposed to do for ourselves. You see, when you consult all the religions, whether you talk about Islam, Christianity, all religions that try to explain the creation of human being, they will tell you that human being was created from the dust. Quran will say that human beings created from the black mud. The Bible, the Christian Bible, will tell you that human being is created from the dust, from the land. Now, when you dig in the land, you see that there's diamonds, there's gold, there's all these beautiful things that we want in the world. So, for me, in my revolutionary thinking, I believe that if you are taken from the land which possesses gold, diamonds, cottons, it means in you, as an individual, as a part of the land, you are also having certain materials. You have gold in you, you have diamonds in you, you have platinum in you. We have all these precious materials in you as an individual. Now it is your responsibility, your duty to then bring forth these things to the light so that they can shine. You see, we mostly think that diamonds shines. No, they don't shine. We think gold shines. They don't shine. They just reflect the light of the sun. When you take them out of darkness and you expose them to the light, they have a special ability to reflect beautifully the light that is being projected onto them. So that is the same way. If we are not brilliant right now as African people, it's because we are not yet, or we have not yet brought forth the good things that are within us, the golds, the diamonds that are within us. So it is our duty to believe that we have all these things, just as Europeans believe that they have them. They are conquering the space now. They are creating some wonderful technologies, things that you cannot really imagine, or things that we couldn't imagine in the previous century. They are busy doing them right now. Artificial intelligence, nanotechnology, robotics, all these fields of science are really revolutionizing the world. And we cannot be lagging behind. We have the capability to do that, but we need to believe that we have that capability to do that. We need to decolonize our mind from all the filth, from the inheritance of colonialism, neocolonialism, slavery, so that we can look at ourselves in the center of our own paradigm as African people. We should be able to look at ourselves at the center of our own paradigm, without any other color, without any other people. Look at ourselves that we are capable of changing this paradigm, and then begin to do so. And we are capable of doing that, as I said. So, expropriation of the mind without compensation. It simply means that we need to expropriate our mind from the yoke of colonialism, and today, neuron colonialism. We have to break through psychologically. And without compensation is simply because we don't have to pay anybody to be free. We don't have to pay anybody to use our mind. You see, every day you wake up in the morning, you wake up with something that most of us don't realize. We wake up with unlimited capability. And this is the capability or the power to think about anything that we want to think in life. And every problem in life can only be resolved from the mind, from thinking, from the process of questions and answer. We need to ask questions and answer to those questions. And when you ask the question, what you're doing is you are thinking. Asking question is thinking. So any problem, every morning we wake up with this power to think about anything that we can think of in life. But we don't realize this power. And everything that you see in this world, starting from spacecrafts, aeroplanes, ballistic missile, laptop, computer, anything has been the creation of somebody's thoughts somewhere. Somebody had to think and create that in his imagination, then begin to work with his hands or her hands to bring that creation or that imagination into a physical equivalent. So whether we talk about our freedom, the ideal picture of Africa that we want, the ideal image of Africa that we want, the ideal image of African person that we want, the ideal reality of Africa or of African people that we want in the world, it must firstly be created in our mind, and we must work with our hands to bring it in the reality or in their physical equivalents. One of the things that is killing Africa today related to the incapacity of our mind and of our body to link together and work together to bring what we want to see in our realities, because sometimes we believe that God will come and change Africa. We believe that maybe Europeans will change their minds at some point and stop oppressing us and come to change Africa. No, it is our responsibility. It is our duty. And the only organization, the only projects that will respond to our needs, that will speak for us is that which we bring into existence by our mind and our actions. So today, our dear Africans, let us not reverse the order. Let us not begin with the hands to work on initiatives that were created by Europeans, because those initiatives were created for European interest. Mostly those interests are based on the domination of Africa. So in other words, we have always make ourselves available or participants willingly in the projects of African domination and extermination. So let us now follow the formula. Let us use our minds, create something in our minds, and believe that what is created in our mind is true, is logic, and we can make it, we can transform it into its physical equivalent or existence. And let us use our hands to work harder for our own initiatives. We have been already working hard to advance the projects of neuron colonization in Africa, to advance European initiatives. Let us work harder to advance our own initiatives as African people. And one of those initiatives is the ACUP, or the Free-Minded Pan-African Academy. Now, if you want us to go deeper into these projects, into this discussion of the mindset, how we can unlock our mindset, I do invite you to join us in the Free-Minded Pan-African Academy lectures that we have every Wednesday on Telegram. You will see the details in the description. So join us, let us together unlock our minds. Let us discuss, let us discover strategies and the means and ways we can unlock our minds and become more productive to ourselves and to the whole agenda of African liberation and African emancipation. So if you have two shoes, please sell one and buy a sword. If you have two trousers, please sell one and buy a sword, because now it is time for revolution. And this revolution is no longer on the streets. This revolution is in the mind, because if we are in charge of our mind, we'll be in charge of our reality. Otherwise, we will be the tools that other people use to oppress us and to oppress our people. Peace and love, freedom and decolonization to all African people, those at home, those abroad, and those in the future. See you next time.